A very good morning to everyone. Welcome to the ODPP Café. My name is Anita Onuko. Thank you for joining us. Today we are going to be live on YouTube. Our Facebook is still down, but we are also on Twitter where you can join us and join the conversation. This show is brought to you by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and it is there to teach you and to educate you on matters on the criminal justice system, so that you know as a citizen what to do when you're either in conflict or in contact with the law. Please engage with us as you have done throughout the year. Follow us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel, and also on Twitter. We shall let you know once our Facebook page is up and running. So as always, we start with a sneak peek into the courts. It's always not very exhaustive, but just a few cases like that we've had going through the courts. And I'm going to start with the case of Babu Owino. I know this has caused a lot of discussions and discourse on social media, off and online. But then the case of Babu Owino took a turn, and he's going to be charged with the misuse of a firearm. So the court upheld the prosecution's application to proceed to full trial with the misuse of a firearm, charges leveled against Embakasi MP Babu Owino. The court, however, withdrew charges of attempted murder of DJ Evolve, Felix Orinda, after the victim repeatedly applied for withdrawal of all the counts. So the court dropped the charges against Babu, the one that were leveled against him in the case of DJ Evolve. So while granting the withdrawal, the court relied on Article 159.1, Article 151.9(1)(c), which gives judicial authority to encourage reconciliation. Pre-trial date has been fixed for 20th January 2022. So that was a case of Babu Owino. I know we are still talking about it, and we'll still talk about it for days to come. The next case is about the Moi Girls fire. Remember it? Sometime in 2017, a very sad case. So a student was charged with starting the fire that led to the death of 10 of her colleagues at the Moi Girls High School, Nairobi in 2017, and she was found guilty of manslaughter. So in convicting the student, Justice Stella Mutuku stated that the prosecution proved... Just a minute. Sorry about that. So in convicting the student, Justice Stella Mutuku stated that the prosecution proved that the accused killed the victims, but it wasn't intentional. Hence, she substituted the murder offense with manslaughter. So that case was quite a big thing. She'll be sentenced on January 4th, 2022 after mitigation. So the student was found guilty of manslaughter. Quite sad a case there. The next one is also about a very sad case about a man who defiled a young girl. He got 20 years for defilement. The man in Garissa is to serve 20 years in jail for defiling a 15-year-old girl who was walking to a camp to seek refuge after being displaced by floods. Yusuf Imani offered her a ride to the camp on a motorcycle, but sped off into a bush. So this girl was just trying to get refuge, but instead she fell into the hands of this guy. The court also heard that after the incident, Imani forced the girl to wash off the mess using dirty flood water. The matter was prosecuted by Mr. Victor Owor. So this man got 20 years for defilement. The next case is about a man alleged to have murdered his family. He is to remain in custody for 40 days. Paul Murage, the man suspected to have killed his wife and 4 children in Gishugo, Kirinyaga East Sub-County, will be remanded for a further 40 days at Kerugoya GK Prison. State Prosecutor Vincent Mamba requested that he be remanded to allow the court to provide the suspect with legal representation before he takes a plea. Remember, this is one of those provisions that one must have legal representation before their case actually takes off. So I think they're trying to get this in order before the case begins. Murage is alleged to have murdered his family of 5 before attempting to kill himself on Sunday, December 12th. The matter will continue on 24th of January, 2022. So those are the cases we had for you. and like I keep saying, none of which, this is not everything that happened in the courts, but it is some of what happened in the courts. And we thought that we share with you just a few highlights, but definitely there's more that happened there. So after this, I'd like to introduce a video. We won, the ODPP won, and the DPP won the Jurist of the Year 2021. It was quite a win. The ODPP won, the DPP won, and also the ODPP Café won because we were mentioned in the citation that was read out by ICJ when they were handing over the award to the DPP, and it was quite an exciting moment. Because of the ODPP Café, we have been able to engage you, the public, on matters of the criminal justice system, and we've had discussions, and we've also been enlightened by the ODPP Café. So we won. The DPP won the Jurist of the Year award, and the ODPP at large, because of course he works with a team. So I'd like you to watch this video from ICJ that talks about the win.
The Jurist of the Year must have consistently demonstrated exceptional courage and determination in upholding the rule of law, human rights, and democratic ideals, even at the risk of punishment, deprivation, loss of personal liberty or life. Very much so. This one also very important. The Jurist of the Year should be a person of unquestionable integrity, honesty, and leading in example by society, which I firmly believe the recipient shall and have been. The Jurist of the Year must not be a person who, in the opinion of the committee, has engaged in activities which undermine the ideals of ICJ Kenya, human rights, the inviolability of the integrity of the human person and rule of law, or democratic principle.
The strength of a constitution lies in the will of the people to defend it. This was said by Thomas Edison. Therefore, it is befitting that for his transformative approach, vigilance in the protection of the Constitution, courage in defending the voiceless, and humility in the service of the people, that we as ICJ Kenya Fraternity confer Mr. Nuruddin Haji with the Jurist of the Year Award 2020.
For words. When I was told about this, I had not really expected this nomination. But I'm really humbled for this, the conferment of this year's Jurist of the Year award from the ICJ. It's a great honor. Not only for me, but for the ODPP. Because to be frank, for a long time, myself and my colleagues, I've always wondered whether Kenyans really note what we're doing as ODPP, because this award is really not about me. I attribute it to the ODPP, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and the great team that we have tried to put up together. It is noteworthy that this is the first time since 1993 that the award is going to a public prosecutor and a director of public prosecutions. I mention this because when one takes up the job of a public prosecutor, not even the DPP, but a public prosecutor for that matter, you do not expect to be the recipient of any award. Most often, there are always mixed feelings about the decisions you make, and the work you do is often seen as intended to punish or inflict pain on others. And I'm sorry if I've done that to any of the members here. I'm sure I've not done that to the council. Others I would not have received this award. on a light note. Whatever decision you make as a prosecutor, there are those who will be happy and others who will be displeased. It is often a job that we take up not expecting any accolades. Therefore, the bestowment of this award to a prosecutor will encourage others to further the ideals of human rights, rule of law, and democracy in their various assignments, whether in the public or private sector, knowing that there are those within the society that notice it and appreciate the effort. I wish to acknowledge that this award is courtesy of the many men and women working tirelessly at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to deliver professional prosecutorial services with humanity in mind. Their unwavering support to ensure that the vision to have a prosecutorial office that is responsive to the needs and challenges of the society is the reason we as a team have been able to achieve so much in 4 years since my appointment in 2018. To my colleagues in the criminal justice sector, through the National Council of the Administration of Justice, I wish to thank you for your unwavering support towards criminal justice reform. I wish to single out the judiciary that has been a pillar towards the success and adoption of the DILIFO system that is connected to the judiciary e-filing system, thereby creating a seamless flow of communication between the judiciary and the ODPP. As Kenya, we've lost a lot. But there's always hope. And I think when you look at the awards that ICJ has been giving, it's always individuals, I believe, that have given hope to Kenya. And it's a statement that shows that there is something we can do if we put our best foot forward. So with those few words, thank you very much. God bless you all. God bless Kenya.
There you have it. You've heard what the DPP said when receiving the award from the ICJ. Like I said earlier, he won the Jurist of the Year Award 2021. And it is the first time since these awards began that a public prosecutor was given the award, was rewarded. And you heard what they said. It was about, if you read it actually, it was about his tenacity and his commitment to upholding the rule of law. You've seen how there have been a lot of push and shove in that area, but he has come out successful and the ODPP has come out successful. So like I said, this is a season finale for this year's ODPP Café. It was the first ODPP Café this year, and we've done it. We have recorded at least 40 episodes, and you have watched 38 so far. I think for today is the 38th episode. It has been a great, great learning experience for myself, and I want to believe for you too, because through this show, we have talked a lot about the criminal justice system. I mean, I think as a person, I've also immersed myself so much into this criminal justice system, and I know you have as well through the show. You've learned something, and for me, the power lies in the engagement that we've had throughout the show. So through this show, we've discussed topics that under the criminal justice system that were for long so far away from non-legal people like you and I. We've talked about the mandate of the ODPP, where we discussed the decision to charge, and I think we did it like twice. And in every show, we've talked about how the decision to charge is made. When you talked about appeals, when you talked about murder, we spoke about the decision to charge, because we learned, and I learned, that it is the most important decision a prosecutor makes. It is what changes the system, either puts you into the system or puts you out of the system. So from this, we learned that the prosecutors are the gatekeepers of the system. So if they open the gates, then everybody goes in. If they don't really have proper guidelines on to how to charge and how not to charge, then everybody gets in and the system becomes really unfair. So we saw how the decision to charge links with human rights. Would you believe it? The decision to charge also just makes the prosecutors uphold human rights in one way or the other. Because like I said, if they open up the gates, then there'll be a violation of human rights. So the DTC was discussed at length. The decision to charge, that is, was discussed at length. It is what sets this service, this office apart from the rest. So we learned how the criminal justice system works. There was the investigators, where we have the police service, we have EACC and others. And then we have the prosecutors now, where you have ODPP. Then from there, now we have the courts who deal with adjudication. And then you have the criminal justice system. So this system works as a whole. When there's a hitch, then there's a problem. Then it doesn't work properly. So you've seen how it works through the episodes that we've been holding on this show. So if you remember, we talked about plea bargain. We learned a lot on plea bargain, and it was quite discussed online. We learned about bails and bonds, and we saw that with bail and bond, with rights comes with responsibility. Remember, the Constitution says that everybody has a right to bail and bond, to bail or bond or unbond. But then we learned that it just doesn't come. It is not absolute. It comes with responsibility. We talked about appeals. If you remember, we had a great teacher on this. And of course, a lot of questions came up. One of the first shows we had. We've talked about anti-corruption. We've talked about murder. And another one was children justice. And we didn't exhaust it. I think we've had it like 3 times. And we still have more to say on that. Recently, guidelines were launched on how prosecutors handle children that come in contact or in conflict with the law. And we saw how that panned out. We had a very nice launch. We also talked about SGBV, again, one of those that really was enlightening. And I hope you were enlightened as well as I was. And then anti-FGM, if you remember how we were shocked at how this thing actually has phases, has stages, and how it impacts a girl's life. And we talked about it with the CEO of Brighter Society, Sadia. We also had the anti-FGM board, and they hope to actually eradicate FGM by, I think, 2030, if I'm right. The ODPP has SOPs that are also directing and giving prosecutors guidelines on how to manage FGM cases. So we've talked about murder, SGBV, FGM, appeals, bails and bonds. We've talked about human rights. We've talked about corruption. And now we are coming to the end of the year. I'm excited because I didn't believe we could get to all these episodes, 40 episodes, and there's more to come in the new year. So thank you so much for being a worthwhile partner. Thank you for walking with us the journey. Thank you for actually allowing us to talk about the criminal justice system in this manner, in a non-legal manner. And we hope to discuss more in the new year. I want to close the show, but before I do, I want to leave you with some 2 recorded episodes that we had done while on tour in Mombasa. We had conversations with the non-state actors that also came onto the show to join ODPP to talk about some issues. And today we are going to play, we are going to show you what the discussion we had with IJM and ODPP on SGBV in Mombasa, where we also got to learn about sex trafficking with children. And of course, SGBV in Kwale and the Mombasa region, and what IJM is doing and how they are doing it with the ODPP. Quite an interesting discussion. So next week, we are going to also have an opportunity to listen to what the ODPP, Haki Africa, and IPOA say on human rights, because again, this is a discussion we had while in Mombasa. So with that, I want to say goodbye for now. I want to wish you happy holidays. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, and I want to wish you a very fruitful January 2022. And let's meet in the new year to see again what we have in store for you. If you need us to discuss anything or to repeat any topic, please let us know, and we'll prioritize it in the coming year. Otherwise, thank you once again for being a worthwhile partner. Thank you for being a good student, and thank you for walking the walk with us. God bless. We are going to be discussing on SGBV. You're welcome to participate on the comment section on either of our pages on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and ask any questions, seek clarification. You'll get experts on the show who are going to respond to your questions. There are those who are going to respond to you even while offline. So karibu tena, and asanteni sana for joining us. I'm going to ask my guests to introduce themselves and tell us what they do in Mombasa and of course under the SGBV banner. Karibu sana, we'll start with the visitor. Karibu.
Thank you.
Please tell us your name and what you do.
My name is Agre Juma. I work with the International Justice Mission. I serve as the team leader for our project here in the coast, covering the counties of Kwale, Kilifi, and Mombasa. And this project involves working with government to strengthen response to the offense of commercial sexual exploitation of children, which is a component of SGBV.
So is it just SGBV, or the project is wider than SGBV?
It is actually narrower than SGBV, since it covers the issue of child sex trafficking.
Okay.
And so in responding to this offense, we are by effect resolving through partnership with government a number of issues, systemic issues, that would have a catalytic effect or a ripple effect in addressing other similar say, violations or problems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sawa sawa. Karibu sana to the show.
Thank you.
Utatufundisha? Simple language.
Indeed.
Don't get it complicated. Karibu sana. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Anita.
Yeah.
Welcome to Mombasa.
Thank you. It's hot.
You enjoy the weather.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Jami Amina. I'm the team leader, ODPP Kilifi County. And I'm happy to have you guys.
Karibu
Yeah.
sana.
Thank you.
Is SGBV big in Kilifi?
It is very prevalent. At least 1 out of 3 felonies in Kilifi County.
Felonies nini?
It is a crime that is aggravated by nature.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 1 out of 3 of
1
them,
out of 3?
yes, is
Ah.
SGPP.
Oh, okay.
Now that would refer to those ones that are reported and end up in court. There are quite a large number that go unreported. Yes.
Okay. So SGBV in full. What is SGBV?
That would be sexual and gender-based violence. So this is violence that has elements in it that are either of a sexual nature or are, gender-based. The violence could be informed by, basis that would be informed by issues to do with gender, so to say. So maybe somebody is victimized by the mere fact that they are a woman or a girl, or vice versa, by the mere fact that they are a man or a boy. So that would amount to gender-based violence. And similarly, violence that is of a sexual nature, the definition of the Sexual Offences Act would amount to sexual violence. Yes.
Yeah, okay, interesting. So, Jami, I'm just wondering,
Yes.
we talk about SGBV and we're almost clear about what it is,
Yes.
but what is it not?
All right. That is a very technical
And I ask you that because you make the decision to charge.
Yes.
So, at what point do you say this does not meet?
All right.
Yeah.
Now, when we are making the decision to charge, we don't really discriminate what kind of violence it is. Any kind of violence is an offense. So it might be a general assault. That would still end up in court if there's
Yeah.
sufficient evidence to prove that
Yeah.
someone has been assaulted. It is gender because of the power and control bit of it, because of the socially ascribed norms and practices that we hold that suppress either the female or the male gender. That becomes gender-based violence.
Gender-based
Yeah,
violence.
so the power and control bit of it. In court, then it becomes a matter of evidence. Yes.
Oh, okay. So, when we talk about nowadays, people are so aware about mental health,
Yes.
then emotional torture comes in place. Is it part of what you look at as SGBV, in SGBV?
Yes, it is a big aspect of SCBD.
How did you determine I've gone through emotional torture?
Well, the evidence would come from the victim. The evidence would also come from any experts that have assessed that particular victim.
Yeah.
And that evidence is tendered in court to prove and show that it is, gender-based.
Gender-based, okay. So do the victims go, or even the perpetrators, do they have to go through a mental health check?
Yes, they should.
Is it mandatory?
It is part of the psychological support that they got.
Ah, okay.
They get when they get attended to by doctors.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, how long have you been in Mombasa? How long has this project lasted?
We've been in Mombasa now 10 months
Ah.
and about 3 days.
You're counting like that?
Yeah. In a meeting on
Oh, okay.
where we were discussing the duration of time we've been here and some
Yeah.
of the things that we've done.
Yeah.
And in this time, in fact, prior to our coming, I think we had done an assessment. And in that assessment, we identified that there's over 20,000 children, both girls and boys, who are exposed to this type of violation.
20,000?
20,000 at that time. With the advent of COVID, this number reduced to research, but we suspect that a lot of these cases went underground because of the public health restrictions that
Yeah.
were put in place,
Yeah.
which limited nightlife, for example. And so research that we've done in the last 10 months, together with our partners, has indicated that about over 6,000 children are still exposed to a level of sex trafficking, where there's, a level of exchange of money or something of value for a child to be involved in sex.
Wow, that's quite a big number. So has the coastal culture, does it play in this whole scenario for SGBV? Does it impede it? Does it promote it?
You know, coastal culture is broad.
Yes.
There's a lot of sub tribes and sub tribes and different nations forming the coastal people of Kenya. And unfortunately, there are some cultures that have not evolved to appreciate the constitutional dispensation that we are in now. And a lot of it is done not because of culture, but just to justify, you know, something that is benefiting somebody in a way that is illegal. And so my simple answer to the question is yes, there are some cultural aspects that have been used to deny justice to some of these victims, or that have been used to inform violations to some of these children.
Yeah.
And these have also led to an extent to the impeding of justice when it comes to court. I think one of the things, and recently, your brother here, Germany, together with the head of ODPP in the coast, Mr. Hassan, in a dialogue in a place called Bamba. And one of the things that came up is that the community in Bamba is not interested in testifying in court.
Why?
You know, because a good chunk of them still listen more to elders in that region. A good number of them still believe in a lot of superstition, which informs their fear of reprisal should they engage with the formal criminal justice system. And generally there's fear that has been perpetrated, which has limited witness participation in court. And what that does when it comes to finding justice for some of these victims is that the evidence being adduced in court, and if the evidence is to inform a conviction, then these perpetrators walk, you know, because of such kinds of things.
Yeah.
We also have seen cultures that allow, you know, for levels of violence to be meted against.
They call it discipline.
Discipline, chastisement.
Yeah.
You know, to be meted against certain members of the community.
Yeah.
I mean, the elders, for example, in some of the communities who've been accused of witchcraft. You know, some end up facing, you know, death, for example. And it's an issue. It's a very current issue.
Yeah.
Which is partly informed by culture and partly informed by superstition.
By superstition. That's quite interesting. So, Mr. Jami, I want to know, there is prosecution, but before prosecution, are there things that ODPP is doing to just deal with this whole SGBV? Because 1 out of 3 is quite a big number. So what do you do apart from just prosecution?
Let me start by saying first, we have laws and policies that guide the work that we do as prosecutors.
Yeah.
And that really informs how we go about doing our activities. But behind the laws and the policies, we also engage in a lot of strengthening of our partnerships and collaborations with the people that we work with. As you are aware, approaching SGBV requires a multi-sectoral approach. You have to work with other people. We start from the time that we are making a decision to go to court.
Yeah.
But a lot happens before that case gets to court. A victim-centered approach would require, first of all, the victim's interest to be taken care of. For us, we have to ensure that the people we work with, for example, the rescue organizations where the shelters where the victims are taken, are working well with us. Yes.
So they are shelters. Are they government run?
Most of these shelters, in fact, all of them that are in Kilifi are not government run.
How many do you have?
What we have done at the CUC, there are around 5 of them.
Yeah.
What we have done at the CUC, we have tried to encourage the county government of Kilifi to come up with one that they can sponsor. And then that
Because 1 out of 3 is a big number.
Yeah. 1 out of 3 is a big number.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what is CUC? Unasema CUC na tujui sisi.
CUC means the County Users Committee. Court Users Committee. It is a derivation of the CHA, which encourages all stakeholders to
Collaboration.
come and work together.
Yeah.
So at the county level, we have a team of people that we work together with. That would be the judiciary, the police, the county government, the government agencies, the doctors, the business community, and every other non-state actors like IJM and others who can come and enrich the process that we engage in when we are trying to address such vices.
So what sort of cases are prevalent in Kilifi, for example? What are some of these things that come out?
All right. You mean sexual
Yes.
offenses?
SGBV cases.
SGBV
Yeah.
cases. Well, we have a lot of defilement. We have a lot of incest. The defilement really does affect the children.
Yeah.
But we have child defilement. They defile each other too. We have assaults. We have injuries to property, damage to property. All of them in a mix would then constitute the SGBD that we are handling in the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So tell me, I saw on your, is it your mission and vision, you rescue victims.
Yes.
So who qualifies for rescue and where do you take them? Do you take them to these shelters?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
First, of course, in a situation where you have 1/3 of all cases being sexual in nature, especially sexual violence against children,
That is so serious.
there's no amount of shelters that will be able to accommodate that.
Yeah.
Because that is so many children.
Yeah.
And evidence that we've seen from our program in the last 10 months is that this is just a fraction. We have a lot of cases that are not being reported. And so a situation where there's a rescue is basically a situation that involves removing the victim from the place of harm to a place of safety.
Yeah.
And this place of safety can be a shelter, but it can also be, in some cases, a home of a relative who's more protective of a child. And our approach as an institution, which is an approach that we're also trying to see how government can also take it up, is to have these children be in places where their stay can be sustainable. And so most of the times, a lot of the shelters that we have are set up in such a way that they would provide shelter for a period of time.
Yeah.
And similarly, what we've seen is that a lot of these shelters are not well capacitated financially to sustain these children for long term. And so these are just some of the limitations that are in that space.
Yeah.
But in terms of rescue, it is moving these children from a place of harm to a place of safety.
How young are these children? How young do you?
The children as young as 8.
Even younger.
Even younger?
7.
I'm so saddened. I can't imagine a third of the cases you deal with are
And there are
SGBV.
cases of incest that have gone as young as months.
Months.
Months, yes.
Wow. So what happens when you get a family case like that and they say we'll settle it as a family, stay out of it? Do you still insist to be part of this case? To what extent?
Well, let me first say that restorative justice is a right that the victims have. What they do when they try to settle these cases out of court without reference to the DPP is what they're trying to pursue, without understanding that there are other considerations beyond their own interests as a family.
Yeah.
So what we try to do continuously is to engage with them and let them know that while there's no problem with them pursuing justice in that form, we have to also ensure that the public interest and the welfare of the public in general, as we consider their request, is also taken into account. Well, there might be a forceful way they try to do it, and they always try to do that when they go to court and say they're withdrawing the case. That they would
Wameenda
do-
kuelewana.
wameenda kuelewana. While we understand that the court has a duty to promote reconciliation, it could easily do so in excess of its jurisdiction when it applies section 176 of the Criminal Procedure Code as read together with the 204. Those are the sections
Hapo
that would
umetuchanganya tu
actually
kabisa.
apply. Section 204 Section 204 of the Criminal Procedure Code allows for a complainant to approach the court and withdraw his complaint. The effect of Section 204 would then be in terms of an order from the court to acquit the accused.
But a child who can't stand in for themselves, so the mother goes and says, I know
Yes.
there was incest, but
Yes.
to watch it too. What do you do? Because I think I'd go crazy.
No, first of all, for sexual offenses,
Yeah.
let me say the act itself does not contemplate a withdrawal. It only contemplates a discontinuation of the case by the DPP, which is why I was trying to bring in the section 204 and section 176.
Yeah.
When you read section 176, it is that section that promotes reconciliation.
Okay.
A court uses to promote reconciliation.
Yeah.
But that can only happen in misdemeanors. But where an offense is aggravated by circumstances like a felony,
Yeah.
defilement, incest, all of them are felonies, then a court cannot then purport to allow a withdrawal of a case under section 204
Yeah.
as read with 176. The only
Hapo
alternate,
unajua umetuchanganya lakini tutafuata
so
tu.
the only alternate is for parties to come to the DPP and intimate what they intend to do, and the DPP to consider in making the decision to charge or to withdraw charges, all other issues around it. Let me just say this, he earlier on mentioned harmful cultural practices.
Yeah.
You see, there's a way in which parties can resolve their issues in a cultural way. Culture is something that is to be celebrated, but it can also be harmful.
Yes.
Where the culture is actually re-victimizing the witness, the victim, and it is expected that then that should come to court and be seen through in the form of a withdrawal because people at home have somehow paid fine, they're paid malu, or you know, they have sorted it in the way that culture contemplates it. If it is repugnant to justice, then this is something
Doesn't
that
apply.
we should not agree for it to progress forward. And that is what we are instructed under Article 159 sub-Article 3, that where, you know, those traditional mechanisms are repugnant to justice, then or where they contravene the Constitution or any other written law, we should apply Section 157 and, you know, let the good needs of the administration of justice prevail.
Restoration of victim restoration. What does that mean?
Well, a victim has a right. A victim is dignified. Yeah, we need to treat victims with dignity. It is not always the case that pursuing a prosecution to its logical end gives that victim that dignity and the respect that they require. At times, we uphold the victim's dignity by listening to their views, and they have a right to confer with the DPP. And they might say, look, this is my father, or this is my brother. We engaged in a fist fight, and you know, he said that I am a girl, and therefore I should listen to him because he's the father, and therefore there's that power and control aspect of it. But I still forgive him, and I would like for my
So
father
that
to,
should be considered.
Yeah, we should be able to consider that and see how best we can progress that matter in a way that.
At what
you know,
point is this
serves.
discussion had with the victim? Before you make the decision to charge?
At all points that are important stages in the trial of a case, and it's an important stage before you make the decision to charge, that the victim knows, for example, the charges that are to be brought. It is an important stage when you are progressing the case forward and the decisions that are to be made that need consideration and therefore conferment with the victim.
Yeah.
They have, in the form of the Victims Protection Act, trial rights as well. So those trial rights that are covered there are things that we also try to consider as we make decisions moving on in the case.
I think this is the first time I'm actually getting to hear that victims actually are that protected, because every time we talk about this whole criminal justice system, it feels like it speaks more for the accused than for the victim.
No.
So they're always just left to deal with what the accused has to say. But I think for the first time I'm getting to get that there's victim restoration, that they can be heard at any point. Yeah, that's quite something.
Maybe if we can just add something to that. Recently, we in partnership as part of the CUC for Kilifi County, we developed.
You say court users committee.
Yes, court users committee.
So anyone who goes through the courts,
So
the actors.
It is the users, and
Yeah.
usually every person who's a a stakeholder to the court is represented.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's not an inclusive membership. It's very, it's not an exclusive membership.
It's not exclusive, yeah.
It's an
very
open door
inclusive.
policy.
So it's very
place.
open.
Ah, okay.
And a lot of other actors who feel they have a stake, come in and they're welcome.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the Kilifi CUC did was, draft these standard operating procedures. And in those procedures, one of the things that came out is the need for victim-sensitive, trauma-informed
Yeah.
case management.
Yes.
And as Brother Jami says, it involves number one, involving the victim in the decisions that are being made in a trial. It involves appreciating the trauma that this victim has gone through, and appreciating that that trauma might have some effect in how this victim responds to the trial process. And for us as an institution, one of the things that we support in terms of that is trying to see how the trauma can be processed in a way that these victims can then engage with society in a way that this trauma is behind them, rather than this trauma being the one that
It defines
informing
them, yeah.
every response that they have
Ah,
in
okay.
the system.
Yeah. So tell me, I also saw, again, as I was reading about IJM, that you do something, you restore survivors.
Yes.
What is that?
And that's what I was just talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
It is getting them to a place where they process their trauma. Cases of sexual violence are very traumatic, and it even to adults.
Yeah.
And it is worse when it involves a child. So, take for example a child who's been defiled multiple times in a childhood, and eventually they find themselves in a place where they need to recount it in a trial. Most of the time, the recounting without proper processing would amount to re-traumatization. And so
It's reliving it again.
yes,
Yeah.
one of the things that we're doing is to empower criminal justice actors through CUCs and individual offices, such as the office of the DPP,
Yeah.
to be very victim sensitive, so that when they are addressing these cases, they can understand that this is a case that might need some time in counseling, and so find that solution for the child. Part of it is also trying to address the underlying reason